Oh, wow.
Sorry, I was...
Oh yeah, no, I was getting ready. I just didn't know that we were rolling. Hey everyone, this is Tyler from Craft & Tailor. In this episode of Under the Radar, we're going over a super cool 1950s Zodiac Hermetic Jet-Aeronaut. It's a 24-hour watch and the reference is 758. Super interesting timepiece that will be really fun to talk about. So if you've been following along with the Craft & Tailor brand, then you know that we are definitely very big fans of the Zodiac brand and we love vintage Zodiac. We have a bunch of Zodiac Seawolves listed on the website and have sold a bunch of them in the past. They're just really fun watches and they're just great to wear. With that being said, there's a lot of really interesting Zodiac watches out there that don't get a lot of shine. And I know I did a video, I think it was probably one of my first Under the Radar videos where I talked about Zodiac Seawolves. I wanted to touch on this Jet-Aeronaut and kind of briefly talk about some of the more obscure watches that Zodiac produced in this sort of more experimental era for just watch companies in general. 1950s, 1960s, it seems like Swiss watchmakers were coming up with a new innovation every other week and kind of throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticked. And that made for some really interesting watches that were only produced for a short period of time and some really incredible timepiece platforms that still exist today. So this Jet-Aeronaut is one such watch. It is kind of a short-lived watch, very interesting, kind of an odd placement of this watch in between production of the aerospace GMT and some of their other more significant timepieces that Zodiac produced. It's a very thin, manual wind, colorful watch, and it has a high visibility 24-hour dial and then a 60-minute track above that. And what this allows is for jet age, jet era, 1950s Pan Am pilots to easily tell the time wherever they are, military time. And though it isn't as functional as a GMT, like the aerospace GMT that they produced as well, it does offer the wearer a quick visibility into the 24-hour time. I think this watch is so cool because you just don't really see 24-hour dials too often. I know that there's the Breitling Cosmonaut, but I can't really think off the top of my head that many 24-hour dials that exist. And it does really make for a unique presence on wrist. The watch itself is just really fun. It's on the smaller side, it's 34 millimeters. It's a nice colorful watch, so that's why we paired it with a really fun single pass strap. What I love about this watch is the functionality of it is pretty niche in its application. Not many people need a 24-hour dial, especially in this day and age. So it does become kind of more of a novelty. And a lot of watches these days are worn, especially vintage, as kind of more of a novelty or a nod or an appreciation to something that was necessary in the 1950s or 60s when we didn't have flight computers or whatever technology added to a watch or to your phone that exists today was just a watch back in the day or a timing instrument. But what I think is so interesting about these watches, because they are so niche, not very many of them were produced. They're actually pretty rare to find, and finding them in good condition is actually pretty hard to find as well, because they weren't made with like the most robust materials. Granted, they're not made with bad materials, but they're not, like 316L stainless steel, like a Rolex Submariner that will, survive a nuclear explosion and continue living on. But it's not uncommon to see these in somewhat degraded condition, especially just because they weren't the most water resistant watches. And I wanted to show this watch to you guys to talk in general more about like the cool references that Zodiac made. I'm sure we'll talk about them more because they made so many of them. I think for me personally, this watch was a little bit more of an eye-opener to the more niche and smaller application watches that they created that still have that Zodiac flair. They have a pop of color, or they have, a cool 24-hour dial, or they're just shaped really weirdly, or they have an interesting movement in them that aren't as mainstream or as well known as, their more modern interpretations of the watches that they've created. Zodiac as a whole is just a super undervalued brand, and I think if we're able to find some of the more niche watches that they created that are actually really hard to find in general, especially in good condition like this one is, then that allows the collector base to just find more cool stuff to get into. My favorite part of this hobby is the hunt. So if there's something else that I find that is really uncommon that I have to spend my hours or weeks trying to hunt down and get a hold of, then that just kind of brings us deeper into this passion and this enthusiasm. So yeah, it's just a fun, kind of smaller, more niche watch that I thought would be cool to highlight. This watch in particular is for sale on our website at craftandtailor.com. And with that, I just want to say thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and you can follow us on Instagram at craftandtailored. And if you have watch questions, we are here to help. You can drop us a line at info@craftandtailor.com. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one. It tells time.
How?
What more do you need?